First sister, I have here Sister Truval. We are right now at the Blue Cliff Monastery in Pine Bush, New York. It's such a pleasure and it's such an important moment for me. First sister, thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you for the invitation.
I understand how private the monastery is, so for me it's a big opportunity to talk to you. So thank you very much for taking time in your routine. I first start by asking you a question that many out there probably wonder. What is mindfulness according to you guys?
Mindfulness? Mindfulness is the energy of awareness of what is going on in the present moment, inside, around us, outside.
And mindfulness, lately, not too long ago, Dr. John Kabat-Zinn through UMass Boston, and mindfulness became science. It's not only any spiritual practice, but what fascinates me, it's because it's now science. It's present in places like the Harvard School of Public Health. How can you explain that mindfulness can be a medicine for people out there?
Yeah, mindfulness is, I think, many things to many different people, but the common ground is that it is a healing. It is a way to explore and to understand our world, to find more sanity, because we become more clear, more present for what is actually there. So it is both a spiritual path and also a very practical way of living. Our teacher, the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, he calls it the art. It's an art of mindful living. And yet, at the same time, he recognized very clearly that it is a very empirical way of living as well. So there's that scientific methodological approach that I think people who are very practical minded, it appeals to them because of that. It's because we can use our practice of becoming aware in a way that we can see results. It means we can visibly and physically, tangibly touch when we feel less stress, when we feel less tension, when we are able to let go of perseverating thoughts, for example. These are things that are quantifiable, and that's why I think mindfulness as a way of living and as a practice has popped up in other areas that are outside of spiritual spaces. And that's not a negative thing. It just, I think it speaks to maybe a universal approach of wholesome living. Yeah.
Wholesome living. This is beautiful.
Wholesome living, yeah.
Yes. I met mindfulness through yoga and then through going to Harvard Extension for the mindfulness program. And when I say I'm coming here, for example, a lot of friends out there, they say, how can you? It's not boring. Don't you get bored? It's a very funny, but this question is really there. And when I come here, I actually find that I'm just peaceful. I feel myself busy in a good way, and I just have a sense of peace. There is no burden here in a world where we are so distracted by social media, consuming, daily life stress. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I'm doing a master program. There is a lot going on out there. I'm bored there sometimes. Why society is getting unhappier? The numbers of mental diseases are just growing, and people are more stressed when we have more resources in the world. Can you explain that?
That is a very good question. I think we tend to get the two concepts confused. One is distraction and one is nourishment. One can be engaged in a healthy way That's why when we talk about wholesome living, it means we are fully aware, present for what's engaging our senses, and we know that we're being nourished, and we also know when enough is enough. We are moderate with it. And then we can be engaged in a way that's distracted, meaning the lack of mindfulness, engaging in things from our habit of craving, of wanting, of comfort. And that leads us into a place of non-boredom, but not in a healthy way. I would a challenging question to put back to friends who tend to want to not be bored is what is true nourishment? Is it being engaged to the point of being tired or satiating our habits? Can one be nourished in a more peaceful, moderate way, right? Coming to a place like a monastery gives us some conditions where we might be able to touch the quieter parts of our life. It doesn't mean that nothing is happening, but it means that we are getting in touch with the subtler things that are going on. And often those subtle things are things that we've actually pushed down, pushed aside in favor of something that's a little bit brighter, a little bit more comfortable. And so to your question of why it seems that in modern day, many more issues are coming up with mental health, we see that people are getting too distracted and not having support to come back to their body and their mind to listen to what's going on. And unfortunately, society tells us to be with our body, to really feel what's going on inside is something boring. So I think we've been fed maybe a wrong narrative, and it's helpful to reclaim these words of nourishment, what is truly nourishing, what is true engagement, and what is truly wholesome, so that we don't fall into this false choice of active being desirable and still being boring. We don't find it boring.
It's not boring.
No.
That's something I want to work on. How to offer my presence for those who are going to be there, and also for my family and my friends and my loved ones. Because I feel that when people feel that connection, they feel loved, and there is healing, there is a magic that goes on in the relationships. But as I said, it's not easy because the distractions of the world are out there. What is your advice for mental health professionals out there who are dealing with a crisis? The numbers, as I said, are high of suicide among youth, young people. Crisis, anxiety, depression. And as professionals, we also get burnout. What is your advice for those people who need to take care of others out there?
Yeah, and it's such an important work, and so we really do need to help create a network of support for those who are helping others. And practice of mindfulness quickly leads us to the realization that self-care is the foundation for care for others. And part of self-care is taking time, committing to taking time to check in with ourselves. So often we see many people who come to the monastery are those who have a heart to serve, and they do burn out. And it's because they have not yet realized how important this issue of self-care is to continue to do the work. So that's the first thing, that if we don't already have that as part of our schedule of care, to include the self-care as a part. Secondly, it's important to know how to nourish the positive seeds in us. We consider all of our seeds of anger, fear, joy, jealousy, compassion as like seeds in our store, what we call our store consciousness. And depending on how we utilize our awareness, we can water, we can increase the presence of those seeds so that we can be nourished by it. And many people in the helping tradition, they become depleted because they're always giving without having time to replenish. So self-care concretely in mindfulness practice means how to water those good seeds, how to know how to bring our attention to appreciate the things that we have, the conditions that we have that are nourishing us. For example, right now we happen to be in a space of peace, right? Relative to other spaces, other areas of the world. And it's just a simple shift in awareness that allows us to recognize and to be nourished by these many elements around us, to give us a little bit of a pause, an oasis during our very busy day. And so that leads me to this third point, which is knowing how to create spaces of rest in our day so we're not always on the go.
Can that be, for example, looking over the smile of my child or a ladybug out there?
Exactly, yes. And that's such a great example of how we concretely bring our awareness to what is actually around us. It's not something that we have to find far away, right? But making use of what is actually around us.
That's beautiful. And nature is around us, people are around us, our brothers and sisters. I have two more questions. I learned that suffering is unavoidable. And the book from Thai that says no mud, no lotus has talked deeply to me. And suffering is gonna happen. Are people acting violently sometimes because of suffering? And how can we deal with the pain of suffering, with all those negative emotions that comes from trauma crossing our lives?
Oh, one of the best protections for our body and mind is the energy of compassion, which is the capacity to relieve suffering in others. And in order to have a heart of compassion, especially when someone is acting in a harmful way directly towards us, it requires a depth of understanding. Right? If someone punches you and you don't understand where that anger comes from, of course you can react in a very violent way back. But if you know that, for example, that person is suffering from great grief, that they've just lost a loved one and they don't know how to handle that anger in them, that loss, that hurt, and they're just lashing out, then from that space of understanding, from compassion, we receive that person's violence in a very different way, in a way that doesn't harm us. We don't get angry back, and we find skillful ways to embrace their pain, to help them, even to the point that we have a desire to help people who are harming, are actively harming. So those great, what we call bodhisattvas, those great beings who have deep understanding and compassion for the plight of the world, they have that capacity. So for us in our daily life, we practice to nourish understanding about our own emotional states. We have ups and downs, and when we can start to still our actions enough so that we can hear the dialogue, the emotions, the thoughts that are going on, we start to befriend them and start to get to understand ourselves. And from that self-understanding, then we can much more easily empathize with other people when they may be undergoing a similar situation. So this practice of mindfulness is actually a way of deepening our self-understanding in order that we nourish this sense of compassion, to protect our heart so that we can continue to reach out and receive those negative energies, not to avoid it, right? It's too easy to try to run away from the violence. But we live in unfortunately, our world, there's violence everywhere. And if good-hearted people run away, where would we be, right? Yeah.
We have to try to be there in the difficult moments. It's not easy.
No.
And maybe that explains why sometimes we find ways to cope, like anesthesias out there that are not going to be healthy long term. We're avoiding emotions. Legions of politics.
Yeah. I think as long as there is a space to pause, there is an innate seed of wisdom in all of us that knows, just like the sun, when it shines on a seed, the seed knows which way to go. It knows which way to put the roots down and which way to head to touch the sun. And so we just need that pause in order to be in connection with that innate wisdom. And when we have that wisdom, then we know what nourishes us and can nourish others, and we can help one another out that way. So I think it's so beautiful that mindfulness and mental health is over these years becoming a stronger and stronger, and there's a stronger and stronger connection, especially because mental health issues are often something that is not talked about, in family circles, in professional circles. It still has a stigma. And part of mindfulness practice is learning how to become aware of, to acknowledge without judgment. That's so important for healing, especially the body and mind. To heal is, first of all, to know what is there to be healed. And when we repress, then it comes up even stronger sometimes. So mental health and mindfulness, I believe, has a very good potential to offer a healing space for many people, just from the place of acknowledgement, just from the place of recognizing without judging, with equanimity. And so that's very important, because from being with many people who have struggled to share their story because of stigma, I see that that's such an obstacle. And so the first gift, I think, that mental health counselors and therapists offer people is a space of acceptance. And the quality of a therapist's presence, meaning their capacity to be present without judging, creates that container of healing that can be so powerful for people to accept themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You said everything. The capacity to be there with no judgment. That's all we need as human beings, right? Acceptance and compassion.
Okay.
And it's beautiful.
And judgment is one aspect, from the outside, when people feel like they cannot talk about their depression or suicide or things like that. But then there's the other aspect of not judgment per se from the health field, but spaciousness to hear oneself. So earlier we were talking about how a lot of the modalities seem to be very focused on medication. And we all recognize, even in meditation circles, that medication serves a very vital role in many areas. But we also recognize it takes many different factors to continue to support someone's healing. And part of it, that spaciousness that one can offer from mindful presence, is to allow the clients who come a chance to recognize that they have potential to heal inside of themselves as well, as along with help, external help, right? And so this capacity should be present and to mirror, to embody this equanimity is very helpful, I think, very healing.
Very healing, sister.
Yeah.
I just talked to a friend one of these days about the capacity to give clients the power to find a way. Otherwise, the system will never be able to. Because in a system that is already so busy in the mental health field, medication is the first thing we can approach. Sometimes that professionals can approach because it's the fastest way. But when people learn certain ways like mindfulness, as you said, so important because they have it to themselves. Because the struggles will never stop, right, sister? And then I promise now is really the last question. I told her it will be 30 minutes, but she's so enlightened that it's hard. I just want to be here. Thanks again. And for those who want to start understanding better, as I said, I read some, I was introduced at Harvard Extension for No Mud, No Lotus, for example, and a bunch of books out there that were really important for me, especially from Thai. What book would you recommend to start?
I would, there's so many, so
I know.
So I can say two, but these are not necessarily the be-all. Because the one that touched my heart is called Being Peace.
Being Peace from Thai?
By Thai, yeah.
Thich Nhat Hanh.
Thich Nhat Hanh, yeah. And the second one would be Peace is Every Step.
Peace is Every Step, also from Thich Nhat Hanh?
Yes.
Are they translated in every language out there, I believe?
Oh, most of them are translated in multiple languages. So the best place to look would probably be online through Parallax Press, which is the publisher for our teachers' books.
Paradox Press.
Parallax Press,
in Portuguese, in English, in French, in every language, you can just access these amazing teachings from Thai.
Yeah. Those who are looking to understand mindfulness and how easy it is to incorporate into our daily life, I think those two books would be a good beginning space.
I'll make sure I put pictures of those books out there for them later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sister.
Thank you. I appreciate this time.
I appreciate this precious time. Thank you.